They were shocked and couldn't move. They thought they could succeed with their plan, but now their secret intentions were exposed. Their shoe was caught red-handed by the cruise ship cleaner. The evidence they shared stopped their plans suddenly. The couple felt very embarrassed. Before sending in their laundry, they made sure it was spotless, but somehow they missed cleaning the shirt properly. When she found out what the couple was really doing, she demanded a lot of money from them. "It will cost $5,000 to clean up this little mess," she said, pointing at the dirty shirt. A total of 13 years had passed since the start of this entire situation. As the couple approached retirement age, they began to plan what they would do with their time. This moment, they had been years in the making for Shirley and Roy Miller. Their retirement dream was to fulfill their dreams after they had worked hard and saved every penny. That day was just around the corner. In preparation for their retirement, the companies where they worked had already begun making preparations. The couple would finally retire in less than a month. As soon as they received their checks, they could do whatever they wanted with their money and time. Then came the big question. What would they do now that they had been waiting for this opportunity for so long? They had talked about this day their entire marriage, and so much had been on their minds. However, there were some serious considerations to be made. The couple contemplated moving into one of their children's houses. They had 3 children together, but certain things hindered them. Their 3 children were all grown up and had their own families. Furthermore, the grandparents weren't interested in interfering with their lives. That was not an option. The next option was to go to a care facility, but neither of them wanted that, especially not at their age. So what was left? Would they keep the house as an investment for their future? Would they go to their children? Would they follow their lifelong dream to eat in Europe and travel the world? Shirley had dreamed of visiting Europe and traveling the world, but she never got that opportunity. She got married straight out of high school, and her first child was born less than a year later. From then on, her life was dedicated to being a mother and a stay-at-home wife. She was so busy caring for everyone else that she never got to care for herself. With their retirement hanging over their heads like a dark cloud, Roy could see the impact it had on his wife. Shirley had always told herself that there would be an opportunity to see the world, but now she realized that she was running out of time. Roy loved his wife more than anything or anyone else in the world, and he was determined to make things right. It was up to him to find a solution to the problem. He decided to sit down and discuss the situation with his wife. "I just feel like all we ever did was raise the kids and work. We never got to do anything for ourselves," Shirley cried to her husband. Roy's heart was shattering in his chest. He had to do something about this. It became clear to Roy that the most important thing for Shirley was that she didn't want to give up all the plans she had built over the years. They had given up all luxury for their family, and they didn't want it all to come crashing down because they didn't plan things properly. But what could they do? That night, while Shirley was fast asleep in their bedroom, Roy found himself in front of the computer looking for more options. Roy couldn't believe his eyes when he stumbled across an advertisement for an affordable new cruise ship in Miami. Curious, the old man opened the link. He couldn't believe his eyes when he saw the prices. Staying on board the cruise ship would be cheaper than living in an old-age home. That night, Roy spent hours looking up all kinds of cruise ships, but he discovered one problem. Roy didn't know if they could handle something like that at their age. The cruising part would be fine, but it was the stopping that would lead to problems. Where would they stay while the ship was docked? Would they really be able to keep coming and going for the rest of their lives? This was something he had to discuss with his wife because it could make or break the entire plan. But before Roy could speak, he needed to think things through. So Roy spent a few more hours smoothing things out, but in the end, he sat with more questions than answers. What would he do now? He wondered if it was even possible to live on a cruise ship for an extended period of time. He wasn't looking to go on 1 or 2 trips. He was looking to live on these ships. Roy spent the rest of that night setting up a budget and calculating what it would cost the couple. Roy didn't even know if it was legal, but his plan seemed perfect, especially after he looked at what the numbers had to say. Shirley had spent the entire evening in front of the computer, trying desperately to plan their future. She awoke him with a gentle pat on the shoulder, and when he opened his eyes, his heart filled with excitement. He had to tell his wife about what he had discovered the night before. A broad smile spread across Roy's face as he patted the seat next to him. Shirley was clearly confused by what was happening, but when her eyes fell on the laptop, she gasped. Could it really be true? Had he found a way? Shirley sat beside her husband in front of the computer as he showed her picture after picture of the magnificent ships he had found the night before. When he looked back at his wife, she had a sad smile on her face. "What's the matter, honey?" he asked, concerned by the sudden shift in her mood. She didn't seem excited at all. An eerie silence fell upon the room after Roy asked his question, but the old man couldn't understand why. He thought his wife would be happy about this. "This all seems lovely, but we could never go through with this," she sighed sadly. Roy frowned, confused by her words. We can't just live on international waters. When these cruise ship owners realize that we are literally living on their ships, they'll kick us out, she explained. Then we'll have nowhere to live. It's all just too risky. We're too old to risk these kinds of things. Upon hearing those words, Roy's heart sank. I was envisioning us moving from cruise ship to cruise ship and seeing the entire world, he said sadly. Roy knew that his wife was right, but for just a moment he considered what life would be like if they actually went through with it. He had never done anything risky before. They always played it safe. What Roy didn't know was that he wasn't just thinking these thoughts, he was actually saying them out loud. When Roy realized what he had done, he looked down at his wife. Would Shirley agree to take the risk? He really hoped so, but his wife's response caught Roy completely off guard. What did she think of the idea and how did she respond to it? Shirley pulled away from her husband and rubbed the tears from her eyes. We have to get back to business. We have a lot of planning to do, she said, steering them back to discussing their safer options. But Roy was secretly still thinking about that cruise ship in the back of his mind. What Roy didn't know was that he wasn't the only one who was toying with the idea. Even though Shirley acted like she didn't want to consider the option, she was thinking about it more and more often. Days went by and Shirley couldn't stop thinking about Roy's proposal. One night, she sat him down to hear him out. They talked for hours and decided to take some time to think things over. As Roy researched, he came across an ad that sparked a bold idea. While Shirley made lunch, he surprised her by booking a cruise to 3 countries she'd always wanted to visit. Over lunch, he shared his spontaneous plan. Shirley was stunned but thrilled this time. She eagerly looked forward to the adventure Roy had planned. He suggested it as a brief break before they considered moving to a retirement home in Minnesota. Excited by the proposal, Shirley agreed without knowing Roy's full plan. 2 weeks later, they were at the harbor, ready for their adventure. Roy waited for the right moment during their trip to raise the question again. Days turned into weeks filled with excitement as they explored new places and met new people. They enjoyed this new routine more than their life at home. Roy realized he wanted this kind of lifestyle, not confined to a nursing home but traveling and having fun on cruises. Jokingly, Roy mentioned he could live on cruise ships forever. That night, staring at the dark ocean, Shirley thought about returning to a retirement community, which she disliked. In a spontaneous decision, she agreed to Roy's idea, not fully aware of what it meant. As time passed, the idea grew on them. Shirley loved the thought of sailing the seas indefinitely, and so did Roy. They became serious about the idea, considering the financial aspects and realizing it could be a cost-effective choice. Before committing fully, they decided to go on another cruise to test their plan. In short, the idea was fantastic, but would it be a sustainable lifestyle for them? The answer to that question was yes. There was always a doctor on board, and it turned out to be cheaper than a care facility. Plus, they could tick things off their bucket list. Years passed, and the couple was having the time of their life. They moved from one cruise ship to another, saw countries they never thought they would visit, and experienced things they never thought existed. It was the best decision they had ever made, or so they thought, but that would change on their next cruise. There was one thing that always bothered them. What would happen if the company found out what they were doing? In the next trip, the couple had planned a Caribbean cruise, and that was where the incident happened. The couple had always ensured that none of the staff members would find out what they were really up to. But on this fateful night, everything would change, and it was all because of a greedy cleaner. That night, the couple decided to have dinner and dance. As they approached their room, they saw someone leaning against their door. They couldn't recognize her, but her uniform showed she worked on the ship and her trolley marked her as a cleaner. The cleaner insisted on entering with them and then did something surprising. She pulled out a shirt belonging to Roy from her cart and asked about a stain on it. Shirley explained that Roy had worn the shirt the previous night and accidentally cut himself on a counter. She forgot to wash it before the cleaner arrived. The cleaner then revealed she knew the couple's secret activities on ships and demanded $5,000 to keep quiet, threatening them with a ban from the company. Shirley stood firm and dared the cleaner to report them, knowing the cleaner would face consequences for blackmail. But Shirley had a plan. When they reached their next port, she contacted the local news. The company, embarrassed by the cleaner's behavior, apologized publicly. Not stopping there, the company fired the cleaner and made the couple VIP members, offering them free cruises for life.